Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like you were still carrying pieces of a person you no longer recognize? That version of you, the one who had to survive, who made choices out of fear, who acted out of pain, still lingers in your memory like a shadow. And sometimes, even though you've grown, even though you've changed, you still hold guilt for who you had to become. But what if I told you that version of you didn't fail you? It saved you. And maybe, just maybe, that's worth honoring, not hating. There's something powerful about survival. Not everyone makes it through the storms they face. Not everyone comes out on the other side, and yet here you are, breathing, standing, trying. You've been through things you don't talk about, fought battles no one clapped for, cried in rooms where no one noticed, and you still kept going. That's not weakness. That's strength dressed in silence. That's resilience without a name. But somewhere along the way, you started to believe that because survival didn't look pretty, it didn't count. That because you weren't calm, collected, and graceful through your pain, your story became something to be ashamed of. That's the lie the world told you, and maybe the lie you've been telling yourself. You see, when we're in survival mode, our brain doesn't care about long-term vision or dreams. It only cares about getting through the next 5 minutes, the next breath, the next blow. It shuts off growth. It sacrifices joy. It protects. It builds walls. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And you did exactly what every human being is wired to do: protect the self, preserve the spirit, stay alive, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Psychology teaches us that during high stress, our body enters fight, flight, or freeze. You may have snapped at people. You may have withdrawn from love. You may have lied, lashed out broken promises, or broken down. That doesn't mean you were evil. It means you were exhausted. That doesn't mean you were careless. It means you were surviving in the only way your nervous system knew how. You weren't designed to thrive while drowning. And yet now, in the quiet after the storm, guilt creeps in. You begin to overthink your past, replay the scenes, judge the choices. But here's something to think about. If you didn't go into survival mode, would you even be here to regret it? Sometimes the version of us we hate is actually the version that saved our life. That younger you, the one you feel embarrassed by or disconnected from, fought battles you weren't equipped for with tools you didn't have. How can you blame someone for trying to survive a war they never asked for? There is a reward for those who keep listening, because on the other side of understanding is peace, and on the other side of peace is freedom. But before we reach it, you must understand this: the weight you carry isn't the past. It's the belief that you were supposed to be perfect through the pain. You weren't, and you didn't have to be. That version of you, the messy, angry, scared, guarded version, wasn't your downfall. It was your armor, and the fact that you no longer need that armor is the proof that you've already grown. So if you've been silently blaming yourself for how you copied, stay with this message, because soon we'll uncover how to finally let go and forgive the person you had to become just to make it through. You did what you knew, with what you had, and sometimes that wasn't much. Sometimes all you had was a heartbeat and a reason to keep going. No manual, no guidance, just instinct. You were thrown into situations you never asked for, and still you stood. Maybe you broke some things along the way. Maybe you disappointed people. Maybe you even disappointed yourself. But can we be honest about something? Growth doesn't begin in perfection. It begins in survival. And that version of you, the one you're trying so hard to forget, was doing the best it could with pain it didn't know how to name. We don't talk enough about how survival creates versions of ourselves we don't always like. Psychology shows us that when we feel unsafe, unloved, or unprotected, we adapt. Sometimes we shut down emotionally. Sometimes we people please to avoid conflict. Sometimes we numb ourselves with distractions. And sometimes we lash out before someone else can hurt us first. These behaviors weren't flaws, they were defense mechanisms, built by a nervous system doing everything it could to keep you alive. But now, in the quiet of reflection, you judge that version harshly. You label it toxic, weak, or embarrassing, when in reality it was just a human trying to survive pain without the tools to heal it. Think about that moment when you first realized the world wasn't safe. Maybe it was a betrayal. Maybe it was abandonment. Maybe it was trauma that no one saw. From that moment on, your mind learned how to protect you. It built layers. And sometimes those layers looked like anger. Sometimes they looked like silence. But they were never evidence of your failure. They were evidence of your will to endure. We often carry guilt for how we acted under pressure. But pressure reveals the cracks we were never taught to mend. And no one blames a cracked foundation for trying to hold up a house during an earthquake. So why blame yourself for doing the same? The truth is, if you were taught better, you would have done better. If you had more love, more peace, more support, you wouldn't have needed the version of you that wore emotional armor every day. But you didn't have those things. You had survival, and you mastered it. Let that sink in. You mastered it. Even if it looked messy, even if it wasn't graceful, even if it cost you things, you made it. You showed up for life with whatever strength you could find in moments of chaos. And maybe now it's time to stop punishing yourself for how you made it through. Maybe now it's time to say thank you to the version of you that got you here. Because it didn't fail, it finished the race. Wounded, yes. Tired, yes. But alive. And that's everything. You owe yourself the honesty of your own story. You owe yourself the compassion that you give so freely to others. Because if the people around you knew what you carried, they wouldn't call you weak. They'd call you a warrior. But before anyone else can see that, you have to see it first. You owe yourself understanding, not punishment. You've been your own worst critic for far too long. You've replayed your mistakes, your reactions, your moments of weakness like a movie on loop in your mind, punishing yourself with the past. But let's stop for a second. Would you treat a friend the way you treat yourself? Would you speak to someone else with the same cruelty you whisper in your own mind? Probably not. So why do you think you deserve anything less than kindness? Healing doesn't come through shame. It never has. It comes through grace. It comes through the quiet decision to stop hurting yourself for what you didn't know then. Your nervous system, your mind, your heart, none of it was built to carry guilt forever. Psychology proves that the human brain begins to shut down when it's flooded with self-blame. It's like trying to run a marathon with your hands tied behind your back. You move, but you're never free. You grow, but you're never whole. And the worst part, you start to believe the lie that you're unworthy of peace. But the truth is, you were never meant to live stuck in survival. You were meant to rise from it. And that only begins when you start to understand the why behind your pain, not just the what of your past. You didn't wake up one day and decide to be broken. You didn't choose fear. You didn't ask for heartbreak, abandonment, or trauma. So why hold yourself responsible for how you tried to stay afloat in a flood you didn't cause? Your mind chose defense. Your heart chose distance. And all of it was an attempt to keep you safe. That's not something to hate. That's something to understand. Because when we understand, we soften, we breathe, we begin to let go. There's a part of you right now that still believes punishment is the only way to make up for your past. That if you keep feeling bad enough, for long enough, maybe you'll be forgiven. But that's not healing, that's torture. You can't fix your wounds by pressing on them every day. You have to clean them. You have to cover them in care. And then you have to let them heal. That's what understanding does. It says, I see why you did what you did. I know where it came from. And I'm ready to stop blaming you for not knowing how to fix what you didn't break. This is your permission to be human, to look at your reflection and say, I'm learning, I'm changing, and I refuse to keep punishing myself for surviving. That's not weakness, that's maturity, that's power, because there is nothing stronger than a person who turns pain into self-respect. And the moment you stop judging yourself for the way you coped, you create space for joy, for love, for peace. That's what you've been missing. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to evolve. And every scar you carry is not proof of failure. It's proof of survival. You don't need another apology to yourself. You need acceptance. You need patience. You need to believe that growth is already happening quietly under the surface of all your shame. Let it rise. You're not that version anymore. And that's the miracle. You may still feel the echoes of who you used to be, but you are no longer living in that same story. You've outgrown it. You've stretched beyond it. And even if the world doesn't see it, you've changed in ways that matter most. Not loudly, not perfectly, but deeply. Quiet victories, small shifts in visible healing, it's all real. That person who once needed walls to feel safe isn't the same person who stands here now. And it's time you honored that. Change doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it looks like responding calmly when you used to explode. Sometimes it's walking away when you used to chase. Sometimes it's choosing silence instead of needing to prove your worth. Those little moments. That's growth. That's evidence. And you don't need anyone else to approve of it. You just need to believe it's happening. Because when you do, the shame starts to lose its power. The guilt loosens its grip. And for the first time, you begin to see that your survival story doesn't have to define your future. It can simply be part of your past. So many people walk through life chained to an outdated version of themselves. They carry the identity of who they were when they were in pain. But identities built in survival are not permanent. They're temporary masks worn during war. And when the war is over, you don't have to keep wearing them. You are allowed to be soft now. You are allowed to be open. You are allowed to be something different than the version that was just trying to make it through the day. That's what healing gives you. The freedom to evolve without apology. You don't owe consistency to your past. You owe truth to your present. And your present self is stronger, wiser, more aware. Your mistakes taught you. Your heartbreak humbled you. Your silence refined you. And now you move differently. You think deeper. You care more intentionally. That is the miracle. Not that you survive, but that you turn survival into growth. Don't let your past self-control your current self. They're not the same. One was surviving. The other is awakening. And if you keep punishing yourself for how you once coped, you'll never give the new you space to fully live. Release the need to explain your change. Not everyone will understand your transformation, and that's okay. Healing isn't for approval, it's for freedom. Look at the road behind you, not with regret, but with reverence. You didn't just walk through fire. You learned how to carry light. You didn't just endure the storm. You learned how to dance in the rain. And no, you're not perfect. But you are proof that people can grow, that hearts can unlearn pain, and that identity is not fixed. You are evolving day by day, breath by breath. That's enough. Let the miracle of growth be something you trust even when no one else sees it. Because you know what it took to get here. And more importantly, you know you're not done yet. The story isn't over. Forgiveness is the final freedom. Not just for others, but for yourself. You've carried the weight of your own judgment for so long, it feels normal. But it's not. It's heavy. It's exhausting. And it's not the truth of who you are anymore. Forgiveness is not pretending the past didn't happen. It's not excusing pain or rewriting your memories. Forgiveness is releasing the grip your past has on your identity. It's looking at the version of you that made it through the dark and saying, I see you, I understand you, and I set you free. So many people wait for someone else to give them permission to move on. But the truth is, that permission can only come from within. You are the only one who can choose peace. You are the only one who can look at your reflection and decide to stop holding old wounds against yourself. No one else knows the full story like you do. No one else felt what you felt. And that's why it's your voice that matters most now. You don't need to prove to anyone that you've changed. You just need to let go of the pain you've used as proof of your unworthiness. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's courage. The courage to stop running from yourself. The courage to say, yes, I was hurting. Yes, I made mistakes. But I will no longer punish a heart that was just trying to survive. That kind of forgiveness doesn't erase your story. It reclaims it. It gives you back the parts of yourself you buried. It gives you back your voice, your softness, your strength. And maybe you're scared to forgive yourself. Maybe it feels like if you let go, you'll lose the only connection you have to the version of you that fought through the hardest parts of life. But here's what's true. You're not letting go of them. You're honoring them. You're telling them they can finally rest. Because the fight is over. Because you're safe now. And because love, not punishment, is what you need to grow. Psychology reminds us that the mind cannot heal in a state of shame. True transformation only comes when we feel safe enough to release what no longer serves us. That's safety. It begins with self-forgiveness. It begins with recognizing that you are not your worst day. You are not your hardest year. You are not the choices you made from a place of fear. You are who you choose to become now. And you get to choose peace. Let yourself breathe. Let yourself be human. Let yourself stop replaying the past like a broken song on repeat. You've heard it enough. You've felt it enough. Now it's time to close that chapter with love, not denial, not hatred, but love. Because the most powerful thing you can do in this life is forgive the version of you that didn't know better and love the version of you that finally does. That's what real freedom feels like. Quiet, gentle, whole. And it starts the moment you decide to let go.